big thanks and hello to Jonny Ellis, founder of the Alpha Complex, a groundbreaking mental health and wellbeing app and consultancy business, whose mission is to motivate and improve the lifestyles of people worldwide. The Alpha Complex is founded on the belief that we are in the middle of a pandemic of poor mental health, with many people struggling to cope with the demands of modern life. Jonny believes progress is key to success and has a strong set of core principles based around action, control, personal development, striving for excellence, conviction in what we do, being present, taking ownership, contributing, and acceptance. Jonny launched the Alpha Complex 4 years ago this month, and in the last 12 months has launched a mentoring arm called Pyramid 9, helping people understand their journey in life, leading them to a better command of thoughts, emotions, and behaviours. So, welcome, Jonny. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Excellent. So should we start from the beginning for the audience? You know, what was your inspiration for starting the Alpha Complex, and how did it all begin?
Yeah. So the inspiration began with my personal story. You know, I was going through some kind of stages of suffering, like through my life, moments of depression, kind of times where anxiety would kind of overcome us. And there was a point I'd had like a breakup in, this is like 2015, 2016 type of thing. And it was a heavy breakup. And I found that I'd gone into this kind of mental state of overthinking. It felt like there was a hamster on a wheel inside of me head, and it just completely ran off the wheel. So I started kind of researching, you know, little things that could help, just general kind of, you know, what is anxiety? What is the mind? You know, and I started going on this journey. And the learning that I was taking in was just phenomenal. So as I went along, so what you read there, part of that from that write-up was the values that I created. So I wrote a kind of short book. It was called The Alpha Code. And it was just basically around the concept of what I believed actually alpha to be, that it was kind of misunderstood in the world today. And I think it is as well. And it's been misunderstood because a lot of kind of, it's over masculinization of things. So I started going back into kind of the beginning of what alpha meant. You know, where did that come from? And I found that alpha was about leadership. It was about emotional intelligence. It wasn't about being the biggest and the strongest. It was about getting your mindset in good order and building good relationships with the tribe around you. I felt like that was being lost. So my journey really started kind of like taking hold as I was learning more about these things. And I was learning about, you know, different parts of the human mind, parts of the body, how different things are affecting it. And that's why I find it very interesting there, again, on the write-up, because that write-up, you know, is like 3-4 years old. Mm-hmm. You mentioned in the write-up that it said a pandemic of poor mental health. And it's obviously we've been going through a pandemic now of you know, physical health as well as mental health, obviously the virus in itself, but then obviously the response to that with people's kind of emotional and mental stability and whatnot. But I really realized about 5 years ago, I was like, wow, this is a pandemic. This is something that's going on all around the world and people are really suffering. So that's why I created the business, because I created that value base, which was the Alpha Code. And then I was like, well, these are like kind of transferable qualities, you know, action, control, development, excellence, acceptance, presence, all of that type of thing, taking ownership, having conviction in what you do. These are all like the important tenets of alpha. So can we lift them up and take them into businesses? So the idea was, you know, how can we do that in a modern way? You know, and that was a real idea of like, right, okay, like this could be data driven, you know, if we really do this the right way. So I created a scale with some psychologists at the time. It's called the Alpha Beta scale. And it has 9 sections. two sides to it, an alpha and a beta, and it's got these sections inside of it. And what we found was that when people used this app that we created, people could measure how they felt at any given time of the day. We could then take that data and then we could analyze it in our own way, and then go back to business leaders and say, look, yeah, this is what the data is suggesting. So it was a real-time data kind of way of analyzing mental health and general well-being. So that's how it came about. And that was, like I say, from my personal journey, from my struggles. And I think that's the case in a lot of things for people. That's why one of the main focuses of what I talk about these days, especially with the mentoring with people, is the personal journey. You know, I was a writer for 10 years. I still am a writer, and I enjoy the concept of writing. But within that, I really learned the power of narrative, the power of story, the power of character. And what I love to do is to talk to people about, well, their personal stories, your personal story, how you're navigating your way through life. But also, if you're the leader of an organization, you're at the helm of a ship. So what's the story for you? How does your story fit into the story of the company? How does, if you've got 50 members of staff with 50 different stories, how do all of these align so that the ship can get to its destination with minimal problems, people feeling happy about working upon that ship? So that was really where it all originated from.
Fantastic. So I guess it's one thing, which is significant, having your own and realizing your own challenges, and you're inspired from that to sort of build deeper learnings and deeper understanding of mental health, but then to go that step further and actually create a business, create an app to help other people. I mean, it's highly commendable to commit that much time, I suppose, and invest yourself really into not just helping yourself, but reaching out and helping others. And
entrepreneurism is it really, isn't it? It's about taking what you are and kind of bringing that out into the world. All the kind of passions that you have going on within yourself. How can you create that into something that's going to serve other people? And that's the real essence of what I think it needs to be. It's how can you serve others? And that was always at the core of what I'm doing. When I have sessions with people now, and even on a mentoring level, there is nothing better. There is literally nothing better than having someone say, you know what, I've changed this in my life and now it's become better. And that's what the business was always about. And I think that's what being an entrepreneur should really be about, what the prime focus can be, how to serve.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting listening to what you're saying there. And people talk about finding your purpose, finding your purpose as an individual, particularly in your working life and in life in general, but from an employment or a self-employment perspective, finding that purpose and then going after it and being fulfilled essentially. And it feels, knowing you and listening to what you're saying there, that this is potentially, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but your purpose, and that's why you get so much from it, helping other people. But it's, as I say, highly commendable as well.
Without doubt, it's purposeful work. And without doubt, the work with the Alpha Complex and the working with Pyramid 9, mentoring with people is no doubt part of my purpose. But I think, again, this comes down to the real question of what is the bigger journey in life? I'm 36 now, Steve, right? So I'm at this stage in my life where it's this last 5 or 6 years has been this kind of you know what, this is the direction that I'm going into. And the level of learning, the qualifications that I've been getting in counseling, and just I'm taking on a qualification to be a personal trainer at the moment. And that's just so that I can kind of captivate people. I can say to someone, look, do you want a mentoring session? No, I'm fine this week. Cool. Let's do some PT work. Let's do some physical stuff. Really look at that kind of holistic way of working with people. So that's where the purpose currently is, but who knows where that goes? And that's the beauty of that, really. It's that question of, 5 years time, 10 years time, what could what I'm doing now truly become?
Great. And what you are doing, I suppose now, we talked about the alpha complex a little bit. Just for, we tested that out at Dentsu, as you're aware, and really successful results. And it was a really amazing experiment, really. That the process that we went through, largely from learning more about people, obviously, but the feedback that we got, obviously we wouldn't talk through now, but it's that insight, that you think people. We're personally, I'm like to get very close, care about the people that work for us and so forth. But you don't really realize. One of my learnings was you don't really realize what's happening on a sort of mental health level until you get the data, until you get that feedback. And yes, some of it rang true, but other bits, it was quite eye-opening. So and I really saw the value of technology of the app in that respect. And
your response was great, Steve. I remember when you got the data the first time, and you were just like, whoa, you were like, how do I get this in? And it was a great way of taking on, because what it did was it opened so many doors to the way that you could manage. So if you're getting live data through to you as quick as possible, that's basically saying that, look, you've got hot spots within the organization and people are feeling this way whilst they're at work. You're able to respond to that. There was one, we were trialing the app in the NHS at the beginning of the pandemic, and the data, as you can imagine, we went the first week into just normal life kind of thing. Then the second week was the onset of the pandemic, and you can imagine how the data changed. So just for the people, obviously, that are listening, the general idea is that collecting people's kind of thoughts and feelings and emotions throughout the day, done in a responsible way, allows the leaders of the organization to listen to what's being said. It gives the staff members a voice, and it gives the leaders the opportunity to open the ears. But there'll always be kind of complexities when it comes to such a thing, from an individual level, from people actually using the app themselves, because you've got people, obviously, the work persona of people. You can have your day-to-day working with people at Dentsu, and you're talking to people and people are talking to you. But at the end of the day, you're walking in the room as a boss, right? You're the guy that's in charge of the people that are there. Do you really think that when you're in that room, that people are showing you their true selves, right? That's an interesting question to ask, because you're like a nice guy. Like from the moment I met you, you were like, yeah, nice, I'm open, you were a chilled guy. And as soon as we started talking about the concept of this app, you were like, I'm really interested. And I remember you were interested at the time, not because of oh, this could make money or anything like that. It was purely, I care about well-being, and I care about the well-being of my staff. That was the first discussion that we had. But people, whilst they're at work through the day, putting on a persona, and they're holding up that persona. You go to work Monday to Friday. Friday comes, you decide that you're going out for a drink as a team. You see the persona come off, and you see a different side of people. So how can we get people to be themselves a little bit more, whilst also at the same time we don't want people to let loose and behave like you would if you were out with your friends or anything like that? But how can we get what's really going on within someone and present it, allow them to tell us what they want to tell us, which is what they do. And then we take that and we say, well, this person has put this into the app. They didn't have to put it into there. That means they want you to know what that is. Present it to you. You then have the possibility of creating positive change within the organization. Without that data, what do? You have your appraisals. Does the persona change when somebody comes in here for appraisal and they're, perhaps worried about this appraisal? Or do you think that you're really truly meeting the person face to face for who they are at that stage? So for me, it's always been about the whole creation of this app and wanting to work and well-being and helping others. It's always been this idea of Well, how can we get the true story? How can we get the true story, and how then, when we've got that story, can that story support the story of the organization to be able to move forward? Because without that, you could have 50 different stories, different going in different directions, and that's not really going to be that real positive for the company, I don't think.
Yeah. And bringing that data to the conversation, because I think, without the data, you're just going off feelings, emotions, what you've heard. As you say, people may put on a persona that isn't quite aligned with how they're feeling all the time. So, and it's that bringing the data to conversation, the real time element of it, and then building up trends within the data, or identifying trends that then enable you to act appropriately. That I really saw from the technology, which was hugely valuable, really.
And gold dust, really, at times, Steve, though it's gold dust, because when something happens, we have an opportunity to intervene. If it's like you've got 5 people who are like, this is happening and it's happening now, would you not want to know that, as a leader of an organization, that you can deal with that situation? It can be managed, it can be extinguished. Things, because look, one of the big things on my journey of learning is the consideration of energy. Just energy for what it is, right? Whether it's kind of mental energy in terms of thoughts, whether it's kind of emotional energy in terms of feelings, or physical energy, the energy at which you expend throughout the day. Like, life is energy. So there's different energy points within a business. If we're going to take it a little bit deeper, it's like how are people expending energy? Do you want them to be expending energy falling out? Do you want things to be able to be resolved better? If you were to find out the information, would you be able to handle it better? These are all the questions that need to be asked with something like this.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. And I agree with energy. Probably haven't thought about it as deeply as you may have, but I actually, I do believe a lot within sort of positive energy, negative energy, how that then influences outcomes, essentially, particularly around behavior, and even within myself, trying to build up positive energy in certain ways does certainly positively influence how I act and how the day generally goes.
Energy should flow, and when energy isn't flowing, it can become toxic, and that can happen in your body with just anything that's going on. It can happen in your mind if you're just allowing, like I was saying before, from my personal journey. 2015, I've got the energy in my mind is just going around and around, and I'm unable to process it. It just kept going. And when something gets like that, it stagnates, and when something stagnates, it becomes toxic. So you've got different points on the physical part of your body, and the mental part of your mind, on the establishment of the environment in which you're in, which includes your home, it includes your work, and like what we looked at with the data and stuff. It's like, well, you've got these people who are perhaps, having an issue with this, and it could be something like a printer, it can be something like the Wi-Fi, it could be a member of the leadership team. There's any amount of things, and the majority of them. This was always the case from all of the data that we've collected. You're talking about over two thirds of the data is positive data by people. The problem that people have, like leaders have, is that fear of, well, this is a responsible thing. When you've got that data in your hands, it's like, wow, I know that I should probably take action at different parts. So the fear comes like, oh, but what if there's just loads of bad data that comes through? But it's never been the case. Every company that we've worked with, 2/3 of the time, it's been really positive stuff. And then you might take a small percentage, which might be like, well, this is heavy stuff that really needs to be dealt with. Did you know it existed before? It's like, do you know what? I didn't even know that existed, but even that other kind of percentage of the stuff which could be seen as negative or bad, which remember when we first started talking a couple of years ago, I was like, don't look at the data as positive or negative. Look at it just as it is. Don't apply the emotion to it. don't make, again, this is an energy thing. It's like, oh my God, like these people have been thinking this, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, but like, just, it is what it is, and let's respond to it in the correct way. But that's the way, that's on a business level as well, Steve. I think it's just, that's the way I think life should be taken. And that was why, you know, obviously ask us there at the beginning, a basic question, which is like, well, why did you, what got you going? Why did you bother? You know, is the real question. And it's when you go on that personal journey within yourself, and you'll have people who are listening now who are on their journey, whatever that may be, at whatever angle of business it might be. When you truly feel that within yourself, you start finding routes to try to kind of explore it more. And when you're in that frame of mind, you should really explore that as a business idea, because at the end of the day, money needs to be made. We need to be able to survive in that way. Making a correlation between the two is just one of the most rewarding things that you can ever do in life, I think.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't think I'm the only one, but I truly believe that if people are, you know, happy at work, if they're engaged, if they're mentally, you know, feeling positive most of the time, and they're inspired to deliver, you know, they will deliver at a higher level than if they're not. So if you have a team of people and they're all operating ideally as effectively as they can, then that leads to better business performance, and therefore, you know, that's only going to help the business overall. So yeah, you know, particularly in our type of business where it is a people business, you know, it's service-based business, you're delivering specialist services through people for clients essentially. So it's super important on a business level, but it's also the right way to do business, I'd suggest. And you mentioned Pyramid 9, we touched on it in the introduction. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the Alpha Complex was always kind of focused at like kind of bigger business, you know, getting into organizations and working with teams. Pyramid 9 was really an offshoot of that, with reference to kind of, I'd learned so much, you know, I've learned so much over the last 5-6 years in my journey that it was like, well, now's a good time to go and get some qualifications, you know, so give it a little bit more grounding for what it is, and make that exploration with people on more of an individual level. So with our Alpha Complex, where like we run some workshops, writing workshops, book clubs, creative kind of exercises a lot of the time. We also run a men's group, which is pretty cool. A couple of 15 guys involved. It's great. But Pyramid 9 was like, well, I want to create something else here. I want to, like, I'm making that now currently into a business, and it's the beautiful opportunity, right? Truly beautiful opportunity to sit with people and say, you know, so like, what's the story? How can we follow the roots back and learn a little bit about how you got here, you know, and how you feel about being there? And are there any gaps in life? Are there any roadblocks that you're struggling to maneuver through? And look, I'm after this call, I'm going to go and have a session with someone, with a client, but I'm going to go down onto the beach, you know, and going to sit there out in nature. I've never understood, like, well, I do understand it. Therapy, counseling, things like that. You can go along and sit in a counseling like room, and it's just white walls and a photograph of, you know, some flowers on the wall or something. And it's like if you, I think one of the big reasons why people haven't previously got help is obviously because of the stigma, right, with regards to mental health, right? So why would you create an environment for somebody to sit in that feels like it's you know, a laboratory, or, you know, some sort of situation where it's just white walls, everything's like really clean, and it's just a bit like feel like I could be in a mental hospital the way I'm sitting here now. And I don't think that's good for people's kind of emotional health, how people respond and connect to matters of the mind and matters of the emotions in the body. So for me, it's like, let's get outside, you know. For me anyway, right, I really truly believe that, like, it's only of recent years, right? And I say recent, we can go back a couple of thousand years, right, with that, in terms of the evolution of being human. It's only, we haven't been living in large societies, right? So a lot of this is kind of new. And I believe that the mind and the brain constantly collecting data around us, trying to understand the environment in which it lives in, right? So you can go back in time and, you know, the nature outside and being out in a forest or being on a beach, being out in the woods was pretty normal data for the brain to be able to process. I don't believe that the brain's processing the data of life at the minute very well. And I don't believe that putting someone in a white room to talk about their mental health is the correct way to do it. I think the good way to do it is get outside and get amongst it, because it's part of what we are.
I definitely agree. You know, listening to what you're saying there, it doesn't seem like a conducive environment to relax and engage your emotions in a way that is most productive in those types of sessions. I mean, I've learned a lot actually over the last 12 months around and built like a bit of an advocacy, I suppose, around being outside. And I don't know how much I've shared with you around the sort of Red January initiative that we did earlier this year, and that was all about the benefits of exercise for mental health, which you can essentially do indoors as well, but it's very much sort of, it was about getting outdoors and going for a walk or a run or some sort of exercise that then got you the fresh air and the positivity that brought. And we ended up with, I think it was over 150 people taking part, and the feedback was immense, more than I could ever have hoped for, around, you know, the positivity that it had for individuals that did take part, and right across the spectrum as well. You know, business leaders as well as sort of team members saw the real benefit and fed that back directly and very openly, actually. So it was great. It was just a great exercise. And personally, you know, that within that and outside of that exercise, I certainly really and continue to get a lot, and something I'll take forward from the pandemic is, you know, things like walking meetings that I talk about quite a bit, you know, but generally looking at ways that I can get out more whilst also, you know, not still delivering on the responsibilities I've got, essentially. So, you know, but yeah, major positive thing. I mean, I do benefit from the environment in which I live, you know, on the edge of the countryside. I know you've got a lovely place as well over by the coast, and you know, it is that whole northeast thing really of being close to the countryside and the coast, which is so beneficial, that enables you to do that. And
that is heaven on earth as far as I'm concerned. You know, that like, I believe that heaven is a place on earth, and I believe heaven is a mindset, you know, and a set of emotions that you can get yourself in. You know, I think it's an interesting thing, right? So I was reading a book called Transformation by Robert A. Johnson. And in the beginning of the book, he talks about 3 types of consciousness. He talks about simple consciousness, and then complex consciousness, and then enlightened consciousness. And that, like, when you're younger, you've got simple consciousness, which is like the wow of the world kind of thing. As you go through life, you start to create a complex consciousness where everything starts getting bogged down. Now, I believe that's where a lot of business is, the business world. The fact that we have to sit and have a discussion and be like, oh, wow, do you think nature helps, you know, for your mental health? It's like that there complex consciousness. It's like something along the line, somewhere along the line, obviously work became a highly important thing. Making money was always important because its value at the end of the day. It's a value base. It allows you to be able to get the things that you want, which a lot of the time are based around the idea of survival. We need to make some money. we'll get food, we'll survive, we'll live a better life, we'll continue, right? But I just find it really truly amazing that from reading those 3 types of consciousness, that how many people are stuck in this complex conscious part, how many businesses are stuck in that, unable to move out of that and go into this more enlightened consciousness, which is what you're talking about there. Well, let's do this initiative, right? What is it? It's going to be a month-long initiative. We're going to focus on matters of the mind. We're going to focus on matters of the body, nutrition, water, all these things that are, even the concept of drinking water to some people. You can say, do you drink much water? Or not really. It's like, that's not enlightened behavior. That's like being wrapped up within your mind and unable to actually, I don't know, recognize what you are as a human, as an animal, and your basic needs as an animal. I think that on a business perspective is what leaders should really focus on. How can we get from being complex organisms that are stuck in our minds to getting more enlightened, to actually going over to someone, seeing that they're stressed and being like, go for a walk. There's a lovely walk along down there by the river, go and have a nice little jaunt, take 30 minutes. Like, we don't want you to blow out. Why would we want that? But I don't believe, and it will always come from the top. And that's what the alpha complex was about, as a theory more than anything. It's this, like, you got this opportunity to take hold, to take command, to do things the right way, to be kind, to be emotionally kind of connected to the people around you and be a good quality leader. As a leader, do you want to be that? Or do you want to just be like, oh no, we need to chase numbers. We need to chase numbers all the time. Is there a conscience within ourselves as a leader that allows you to say, hold on a minute, I'm in charge of people here, and people are important. Their minds and their bodies are important. I think you've always felt that from the discussions that we've had, about like team members and things there. When bad events have happened within your team, big events, it's been a, wow, this has affected our whole team here. Mm-hmm. And then it comes down to you as the leader. Mm-hmm. And that's what the alpha is. And that's why I believe that everybody can be alpha in a room. It's about where they are mentally and emotionally. It's not about one person. It's about how do people in an event come together and create a companionship and an understanding that's going to get you across the obstacles. But if the leader of the organization is not, in that place, if it's just about the numbers and they're stuck in the mind and the complexity of the mind, then, well, it's not going to be a good place to work. You're not going to be known to be somebody who people are like, my boss is great. Like, and I would want to be that. Would you want to be that, Steve? The kind of person that people feel that way about?
Absolutely, yeah. But in seriousness, I mean, I do have a belief. It's just interesting listening to what you're saying there with your observations. I have a belief that from, leadership do have a key role to play within people engagement, people happiness. I mentioned before, and how I believe that enhances business performance. But, so often I see or believe that other organizations don't quite get it right, or don't do it at all right, to be frank. It's very easy to employ. So to almost pass off the responsibility of your people and employ whatever role, head of people, or I'm not suggesting those types of roles aren't a good idea. Yeah. But in addition to commitment from leadership to realize, at the very least, the value that people deliver, and really should have a strategy around people engagement and making sure they're happy, and hopefully, like when we come out of this, pandemic period, more businesses will realize that, from what we've all been through, hopefully that's something we can all take forward as, how we should look after each other, really, having seen what we've seen, having gone through what we've all gone through. Yeah. And even, as you say, even on that business level, it does have business outputs, business benefits from, optimizing engagement of your people, making sure they're happy. But even on the my true belief is on the level that actually that's the best way to behave as well, and really, you should upweight priority on looking after your people, because that's the way to go. Jonny, I'm conscious that we're probably coming up towards the end of our session. Just one last question. What, obviously I mentioned there, the last 12 months, it's hard to get away from sort of what we've all been through, and that is, I don't think any of us have really realised what the impact on society's mental health and well-being has been, really. And I think, over the forthcoming period, we'll just continually learn and understand more and more about how it has impacted people's mental health. But have you a view on, where we are right now, and with that sort of unraveling of information that might come out, where we're going to be in the next 12 to 24 months around the importance that's placed on mental health? And because it is coming more and more to the forefront, isn't it? I see it getting talked about more. I know we just had Mental Health Awareness Week, but I do feel that, and it's championed by the likes of Prince Harry and so forth. So it's getting more and more sort of public recognition of the importance, and quite rightly so. Where do you see it going? Given that you're sort of a specialist in this area, where, in your own personal opinion, where do you see it all going in terms of?
Well, at the moment, I think there's an adjustment going on, a kind of readjustment. When anything like this occurs, it's like, in some ways, it's like a death, and what we're witnessing now is a rebirth, because companies are starting to having to adjust to this kind of to whatever their new norm is going to be. And I'm sure that when you've spoke to people anyway, Steve, you've seen that no company is quite the same in this. There are organizations that have turned around now and said, look, we're not even going to have an office again, and there are companies that are like, well, we made this massive office, and then the pandemic came around, we can't even use it anymore. Other people are liking working from home. So there was always two levels for me that people had the opportunity to go down with regards to this, and it was always going to be a level of are you going to become more conscious and listen to each other and try and understand the people around you, and that's both on a personal and business level, or are you going to stick your head in and just be like, oh, I want the pandemic to be over and just get on with the normal life? So I don't think that I can kind of prophesize what might occur in the future with regards to the larger scheme of things, but I think it's a real opportunity. Whenever anything large comes along like this, it's an opportunity to kind of readjust and reframe what the new norm is. Just quickly chucking this in there, there's a concept called the hero's journey. It's a 3-stage concept, where the first part is kind of the normal world. This is in all novels and movies and things like that. This is also representative in each of our lives. There's this part at the end of the first part of the hero's journey, when it's the opportunity for somebody to answer the call, right? These hero's journeys are going on within your relationships, within your home life, within career, within your sleep, whatever it is. There's always multiple hero journeys going on. That's the question, really, right? The question is how are people at this moment going to answer the call or reject the call? And that's the question for any business leaders who are listening. It's because that there's things that need to be taken on. That there's new ways of working that can be implemented, but there's also the rejection of those as well. Those all need to be taken on a unique level between businesses. So where the world's going to go from this, let's hope that people are talking more. Let's hope that people are, and it's not just about the talking, it's about the self-actualization, the learning about the self. And I believe that that's the most predominant thing that you can do in your life is truly learn about what you are on a mental, emotional, physical and spiritual level, if you're that way inclined, understanding your experiences. That's where I hope people will go from this. How did I respond to the pandemic? How did it make me feel? How do I feel now? Do I want it to happen again? What could I put in place? One of the things that I started doing at the beginning As soon as there was an onset of a virus, I was like, what can I put in my body now to, to strengthen my immune system in a healthy way? So I started making my own tea, started making my own herbal tea, and that's what I'm drinking right now. Got myself an excellent Tetsubin.
Oh, wow.
And started making my own tea, and I made my own little tea business out of it. And it's like, that was just to strengthen my body, so if something came along, I could fight it. But that's how I've responded to this. That's what I try to teach in Pyramid 9 mentoring, how people can kind of take that on themselves in their own unique way. So the hope is that people will become more conscious, become more together, not just talk about mental health, but, go on their own journeys of self-exploration in a good way, get a guide if that needs to be done. And if that's the case, I believe bringing more consciousness into the world anyway is a beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, society is based upon kind of, hope and kindness in my eyes. So it's about establishing those things.
Perfect. What a note to end on. I love that, Jonny. Thanks so much. It's been brilliant, and I'd love to invite you back on soon and do a regular one of these, because that was a fantastic discussion, and thanks so much.
No worries, mate. Anytime. Great speaking to you.
Brilliant. All right. Take care then. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.